Hey parents, Carmine here with your video review of Need for Speed. Okay, right off the bat, I'm going to answer the obvious question. Why am I bothering to review a racing title when there's so many other games on my plate? I have three good reasons. First, I'm a longtime fan of Need for Speed, so I like to keep a record on how the series progresses. Second, it baffles me that these games continue to get TESRB ratings for what is ostensibly a game where million-dollar cars are treated like go-karts. And thirdly, this is the first Need for Speed since Carbon to feature real actors, and that throws a bit of a monkey wrench into the mix. Where previous titles like 2013's Rivals were purely about racing cars and featured only voice actors, this 2015 reboot makes things seem a bit closer to reality, tying in real people and in some cases real racing icons and legends. No, seriously, EA managed to pull together real racers and make them into the icons the player and his crew are trying to impress. And while 2015's Need for Speed might have missed a few marks, I find it a huge leap in the right direction for the series. Using real actors in live-action cutscenes for games is always a dangerous thing, since blending the computer-generated world with what is usually an awkward script is extremely difficult, and this is only compounded when you try and transition between the real actors and the virtual gameplay. Yet it time and time again works perfectly with Need for Speed because really the only way to effectively pull off any sort of script or story in a racing game is to realize and to not just accept the notion that treating a Lamborghini or Ferrari so casually is, at its heart, ridiculous, but to embrace this idea and wear it proudly like Superman's cape. And this Need for Speed does exactly that. It's just unfortunate that it's not called Underground 3, so I don't have to keep calling it 2015's Need for Speed like it doesn't have a title. Now, that being said, let's move on to the content. Need for Speed is a game where cars, both classic and modern, are upgraded with ridiculous and expensive modifications, and then these cars are driven through a large cityscape with complete disregard for the laws of physics. While I would not use this as a practice for a driver's ed course, anyone with a rudimentary understanding of cars should be able to tell the stunts done in this game are meant for video games, movies, and professional drivers with multi-million-dollar insurance policies. But the cutscenes do present some slightly more real content. Frequently the people in cutscenes go to relatively quiet parties where the partygoers drink out of red Solo cups. Now, here's the thing. My experience with the red Solo cup involves college, games of beer pong, consumption of alcoholic beverages, and I have the feeling that's exactly what the designers were implying here. This is compounded by the scenes where people are visibly drinking from these same cups in a location that looks like a dive bar or pub or something like that. Something that anyone who has been to a bar would realize is absolutely ridiculous, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that the devs managed to exploit a little bit of a loophole. Notice the obviously placed cans and logos advertising Monster Energy drink? Well, there are a few cutscenes where people are obviously seen pouring Monster into those red Solo cups, implying that everyone is drinking Monster out of those cups. Ignore the obvious implications of underage drinking in a game where all you do is drive at high speeds and run from the cops. You won't get a DUI because you're only drinking Monster. Frankly, I'm still skeptical. I understand the developers wanted to make the easygoing atmosphere seem a bit more real, and if you go to a college party, you'll see people standing around drinking out of these cups, but if it were up to me, I would have found something different to have my background extras doing rather than standing around with Solo cups in their hands. However, ultimately, this is the most important factor in the game. Mature language isn't a factor, excluding some middle fingers that get thrown about here and there. We can have a discussion about whether the alleged drinking should even be considered a factor, but since there is no other mature content, we gave this game a recommended age of 8 years old. As always, let me know what you think in the comments, and look for Metal Gear Solid 5 and Rainbow Six Siege coming soon.